Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Howdy, 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 and welcome to the SRF Weekend Warriors presented by Race Voice. We are here in the hills of New York at Watkins Glen International Speedway. I'm Austin. I'm joined by Charles Bushell. We got Jonathan Grabowski in the production booth. You're here live watching Apex Racing TV. Charles, it's been a season so far. We come to the final two races of the season, but the penultimate round is probably already stamped as going to be my favorite round here because I'm very biased towards this track. It's Watkins Glen. It's fast. It's a very fun track. It's very fast. It's very simple, and it's going to be a lot of fun for these drivers. The draft is going to be immense with a lot of these drivers, and it's going to be a pack race for most of this race because trying to pull a gap here at Watkins Glen is a very big ask for a lot of drivers and a lot of big technicalities with drivers. There are going to be a big oopsie moments like we almost just saw right behind New York Monty right now. But yeah, it is Watkins Glen. How are you feeling about today? How excited are you?
Austin, thank you for that. Yeah, no, this is probably one of my top 3 favorite tracks in iRacing. Home track last week, one of my top favorites this week. Love driving this. Also, from one of the least used to one of the most used tracks in all of iRacing. Everybody drives Watkins Glen pretty much. So yeah, I'm looking forward to a great race. We've got our usual suspects up front in practice and qualifying, setting some really quick laps. It's going to be interesting to watch the draft pack as we go through this race. And we're using the boot, which I think is, wow, going from the short course at Barber to the boot at Watkins Glen is pretty intense.
It is. We go from, the short course at Barber provided a lot of action and a very cramped feeling. Watkins Glen is going to be a cramped feeling, but not in the way that we're going to expect of cramped track-wise. It's a pretty wide track. It's going to be cramped in draft pack-wise. The start of this race is going to be very close with each other. You will have opportunities to pull away that gap by drivers going for moves when they shouldn't be making moves. There's going to be a bit of checking up. It's going to be like we're watching a stock car race on the day of another stock car race. So it's going to be very interesting. Also, track limits here at Watkins Glen is very forgiving. So
Yeah,
we won't
yeah,
we
for
won't
sure.
we won't be expecting drivers to be worried about track limits, especially coming out of this right-hander right here. You can fly all the way out there, all the way to the tarmac, all the way to the grass, and you be just fine right there. Though I think that's the only corner here at Watkins Glen where there are no track limits outside of the cup layout, which is just riddled with you could go with anywhere you want. I remember when the Porsche Esports Challenger Cup came here for qualification into the Porsche Esports Cup. Everyone was just blowing past the carousel and is running in that sea of off track. I was looking at that. I'm like, what am I watching?
Yeah, exactly. I did the NASCAR Truck Series last year for Apex. Very much the same thing. That cup layout, and you're right. There's not a lot of off tracks. However, I think there's one slowdown. And that's turn one. If you go wide turn one, you don't get back in time. That will give you a slowdown.
Yes.
But the biggest thing you have to worry about here is the grass. For whatever reason, the grass is even more slippery here than usual. So if you get out in the grass, it's very tough to recover the car. And you'll see it when people are just pushing the edge on these corners. You'll see them as they're going wide to get good entries. They'll if you touch
is the biggest grass spot. The exit of the boot, getting back onto the regular circuit, as NASCAR fans would like to call it, the regular circuit. It's just it's just a short shoot for me.
Yep.
But you go out wide, you're already low grip coming out of there. You're over a rise. It's not as low grip as it used to be, though. If you just clip that grass for a little bit, you are going around for a ride, and it's not a ride you want to remember.
Absolutely, yeah. That is probably the toughest corner on the circuit, and it's because of what you said. It's the connection with the short circuit and the long circuit, where the boot ends, what I like to call the bootstrap, and it's just the way the tracks camber. And it's just the way the tracks camber. You kind of ride over the cushion in dirt track terms, and try and get the car turned, and it's very difficult. The line has to be almost perfect through there.
And if you just feel like if you get that entry a little bit wrong, somebody behind you could be going a little bit more aggressive, stealing the car right there. And that is a very brave spot to make that overtake, because that car is going to be battling with that. And then if there's a spin, it's right over a tunnel. So you got two tight fences next to you. I was talking with my hands, and I just muted my microphone. But there's a tunnel right there, and if you spin right there, it's a very big and very easy spot to have a parking lot incident. There have been a few incidents throughout the years of something like that happening here on iRacing and in real life. It's a very precarious spot, as well as opening lap incidents here through the SSO. All these drivers,
Yes.
I believe, are going to have their heads screwed on right now. We shouldn't be expecting that to happen. But then again, we've seen weird things happen around this track before. So
Yeah, indeed.
you can never guarantee safety.
No. Yeah, the biggest, like I said, we talked about the exit of the boot, and you talked about the S's. Very, very difficult to run too wide through there. You have to have a lot of cooperation with your competitor. You don't always get that. And then, as you said, the dives into the boot, to the bus stop. I'm sorry, the dives into the bus stop area. There will be people trying to make overtakes there, and it's going to be tough. You have, like I said, you have to be smart about it if you want to last the whole race.
And then also the opening laps with the carousel coming into play, low grip heading through there. With these cars, lap one, I was running a race here a few weeks ago with the Skippies, and oh my gosh, if there's a race I run in the Skippies, it's always Watkins Glen, because lap one at the carousel, I've never seen so many sideways cars outside of a Formula Drift event.
Yeah, the carousel is just one of those. It's more difficult than it looks. It doesn't look like there's much to it, but once again, it's about managing your throttle for the grip level, and until you get those cold tires up to a proper operating temp, you just have to take it easy.
Yeah, outside of those trouble spots, which honestly, when you think about it, we've covered the entire track here. This track is very fun and enjoyable. There are a few full speed corners which these drivers will be taking. Uh, it's not turn one, I'll tell you that. But
You know.
the full speed corner is the penultimate corner. That's full speed in these cars. Just take it left. It'll be a lot of fun, and it's going to be very excited for these drivers. But currently right now, we're here qualifying. Marco Pinero is sitting on top of the timing sheets with a 2:02.593 with Plava right behind him. I can guarantee none of these times were done by themselves.
Probably not. No, you probably got to, get a little bit of toe off somebody to get the extra couple of 3/10 for the lap. But the lap times, as we normally see, the lap times are pretty compressed. So there's not a lot of big gaps between any positions.
And speaking of gaps between positions, there are a few gaps in positions in the points. So let's bring on the points and take a look at our points leaderboard for our Spec 1 category. Marco Pinero, well, we're talking about gaps. There is a gap right there. 716, 200 points ahead of Jason Green in second place. Kane Lasky, the third driver in there, one of 4 drivers who have been in all 7 races so far this season. They're with Felix Mullins right behind him in 4th, and Megan Overstreet, she is in 6th. Andrea Favini, the other driver, in 7th. They've been having a bit of bad luck throughout the races, looking to have a good day here today. And those are your top 5 for Spec 1. Over to Charles for Spec 2.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ian Gibson, the gap 7 points between P1 and P2. Bradford Gould, Todd Hansen in P3, Daniel Wood P4, and then Paul Jackson in P5. It's still, everything's still up for grabs in this Spec 2 category.
And on to our Masters category. It's York Monty sitting ahead just barely by 18 points ahead of Chris Murakami. They've had a up and down race with each other. Chris Murakami was leading the race, the title fight that time by, but last week was not the week that he was looking it to be. He was involved in an incident at Charlotte's Web that was cut in half with that layout. I don't know if that layout might be used again. He definitely doesn't want it to happen again, but he's sitting in second place. Tom Gradwell in third, followed by Adam Bradshaw, the 4 horsemen of the Masters category, being in all the races so far. They're followed by Jim Brewster, Andrew Love, and Jeff Cantor, your top 7, but that top 5 is very, very tight with the Masters category. And with all that tightness and competitiveness, it's looking a lot of fun. And here at Watkins Glen, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be a great race, a big draft battle for the entire 40 minutes, or it could be half the cars out.
Yellow line right there. So I think drivers will have their heads screwed on right there. There might be a little bit of a miscommunication to some drivers taking the regular line while somebody is slow on the apex. So I'm thinking that's like the only thing that we're going to be seeing. Somebody just not timing it out just right. There might be an incident. But here at Watkins Glen, it's going to be a lot of fun. I am very excited for this race. The draft is going to be looking nicely, and the pack racing is going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, as we were saying, Watkins Glen, one of the most raced road tracks in America, which is I think it is the most raced road track in America outside of ovals with road courses that start with D.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Yeah. Yeah, I think Daytona, obviously, because it's got this gigantic 24-hour race, it obviously gets a lot of laps logged on it. But yeah, but they run Watkins Glen. They run
6 hours of the Glen.
Well, they run the 6 hours, but they run road racing. They run open wheel cars. NASCAR comes here, so it gets used frequently on our racing.
And even though it is a very newly updated, we got a long pace lap here. So
Yes.
honestly, I can go into a paragraph for these drivers and we'll still be talking about them right now. But I don't want to go on and bore everybody by going into a massive thing. So we're just going to be very relaxed here. I think, honestly, we should go by this row by row, Charles. I'll take the first row. You go on the second. We'll just hop on through there. Front row, it's Marco Pinero for Alex Kart Racing Raptor. And he's joined by Alice Pleva from Czech Republic.
Yeah, and then we got row 2, Devin Kelleher and Steve Elson on the outside.
Row 3, it's Felix Samoas and York Monty in 5th and 6th place.
Yeah, and then another a full Masters row here, Antonio Reyes and Chris Murakami. So that Masters battle is going to be tight at the beginning of this race.
Behind them is Todd Hansen and Jason Green.
Yeah, number P11 is Michael Nelson and Dan Wood on the outside.
And behind them is the pro row of Simon Meyer and Bobby West for West Tech Esports Racing.
Yeah. 2 more Masters rows, Tom Gradwell in P15, Jim Brewster in P16.
Their Masters rivals behind them is Jeff Cantor and Ken Bately of Sisu Motorsport.
Trenton Kramer in P19 and Fabio Scali from Italy in P20 round up the top 20.
And an all-spec 2 row to join that part as well. They're followed by Chris Montgomery and Polo Gori behind them.
Yeah, Kuzma Lesnoy and Bradford Gould in P24.
They're followed by an all-spec 2 row of Paul Jackson and Phil Berry in the Triple Eights.
And in position 27, we got Dan Babich and Jakey GB in P28. I think this is his first race in the series.
Yes, it is. It is Jakey's first race in the series. I believe the GB is meant to say for Great Britain. So whenever I see him, I'll just be saying, I'll just probably just be saying Jakey. More fun to say Jakey too.
For sure.
They're followed by the Masters of Kurt Nuez and Stevie Ray of Ray Esports Racing.
Yep, Stephen Mitchell in 31st, alongside Megan Overstreet in 32nd.
Behind them is Adam Bradshaw and Marco Trespidi in 33rd and 34th.
All right, Ian Gibson and Brad Cathcart are down under overnight racer in P36.
Well, it's rising up morning for them. Aaron Vagley is starting in 37th, followed by Gary Woodbolt in 38th.
Okay, we got Johan Butinga and Bob Kern, 39th and 40th.
They're followed by Sergio Dorelli and Robert Butcher in 42nd and 41st place.
I'm going to go with Darren Keene in P43 and Gianni Longan in P44.
And they're followed by Edgar Sancinelli and Michel Vacellini in 45th and 46th place. A long time since we've seen Edgar Sancinelli show up, but glad to see the long-running Fruita Sports Racing team driver to make an appearance here at Watkins Glen. And in the final row, it's Avaro Dantas. Did not start a time, and I believe he is joined by Polo Gori on not starting from the grid. So 45 cars running right now here at Watkins Glen, and we're still in the boot right now, so he's got to give a big thanks to Race Voice and Stevie Ray, but mainly Race Voice. Go fast with the speed of voice, racevoice.com. Thank you, everything that they do to power this racing series for the Spec and Racing Forward Weekend Warriors, as well as the Weekend Warriors Formula Keys, and getting all that event set up as well as the Ray Esports Racing Series every Tuesday night here on Apex Racing TV. Remember, that's Race Voice. Go fast with the speed of voice at racevoice.com. And now, as they are coming out of the boot into the bootstrap, as you call it. I love that name, by the way. I will be adapting that to whenever I'm racing here. We're at the penultimate corner. It's time to get our engines a little bit hot, get everybody's blood pumping, and get our tires a squealing. We're about ready to rock and roll here for a great American race of our own here in the Glen. It's time for the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors to go for a little bit of a war for themselves as we go green, green, green. And already, look at that, the crossover by Alex Pleva getting into a little bit of contact on the 267. Devin Keller getting a little bit bump onto the outside. Pleva already immediately trying to cover that inside line, but Pleva looking down to the inside, trying to push ahead of Alice. And yes, he does get that move. A little bit of a braking incident. We got a car around at turn 1, and already this is going to be a little bit of a car park. Big separation and making donuts at the exit of turn 1. That is Bradford Gold getting turned around right there. I saw one car diving through the grass immediately to avoid all that, but here's our front row. Marco Pinero already pulling ahead because Devin Keller and Alice Pleva are not playing nice with each other. They don't want to join the draft with anybody else. They want to be side by side. They were trying to go side by side immediately heading into turn 1. They're still going side by side heading into the bus stop right now, but it's Keller and Pleva in second and third. They're followed by Elson and Samoasburg, Kami, Monty, Reeves, and Hansen and Nelson, your top 10 right now. They're bumper to bumper to bumper to bumper to bumper to bumper all the way through the carousel. But here's what happened at the start.
Yeah, okay, we're looking at 3 wide there.
The 4 wide.
4 wide.
5 wide. Oh no.
In the grass. Yeah, in the grass in the braking zone, and just lost the rear end of the car. And that is
Megan Overstreet. Can we get an onboard and Megan Overstreet from that replay, because that was a very insane thing that she just did. She was on the outside in that braking zone, flung it across the curb. It got tapped just a little bit, and she saved it, and she got to see everything that happened in front of her. So let's ride on board and make it Overstreet right here. She's stuck on the outside. She sees all the brakes happening, gets onto the brakes, car spinning in front of you. And as a driver, you see this happening, you're like, oh no, where are they going to go? Gets a small tap right there, full log, and saves it by Megan Overstreet. What a save to continue on right here. And I think that will be the biggest moment of that race so far for a lot of these drivers. And all of them just like, okay, pump the brakes, wipe the sweat off your brow, get back to racing right here, but just take a breath. Here is our fights for 4th place between Steven Nelson and Felix Samoas, as cars in front of him swap spots, trying to chase down Marco Pinero, who somehow gained a 1.2 second gap behind him. And because second place is battling side by side again, Pleva and Keller are battling out again. And this is working out if you are Marco Pinero, because he's just in his own race, because these two guys have been fighting since the green flag dropped.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just letting Pinero go away. These guys are fighting side by side. They probably should be nose to tail trying to make up that gap.
Wide. Think about this a little bit. Keller getting onto the brakes, allowing Pleva to swing around the outside, diving into the braking zone. If you're down on the inside heading into that bus stop, you really set yourself up to go slow through there. So if you go side by side through there, that's doubling the slow. And then it's allowing everybody behind you to catch up, maybe bunch up, as well as a little bit of a tap the brakes moment for a lot of people as we enter into the boot, and enter into my favorite corner of the boot, and into the circuit as a whole, the toe. It's banked, it's uphill, it's just such a fun corner, because you get to that corner and you're immediately back on the power.
Absolutely, yeah, I love running through the toe. You can carry so much speed through there. Like you said, just get back on the power immediately, and just get that run down to the heel. Got all that wide exit. Looks like they have decided to start lining up a little bit. Maybe see if they can claw into that 1.6 second gap that Pinero's already set out.
Well, you're only as fast as the lead of the caravan, as a lot of my trucker buddies would say. You're only as fast as that lead car, and these two lead cars, well, I can say that they're starting already with the with the stove turned up a little bit too hot, because they have been battling end over end with each other, and they're always battling heading into corners. Now you'll see some lead cars just start battling, but then they'll realize that and just use each other's drafts, kind of just feed off of each other. But already you see Keller going a little bit wide. Here comes Felix Samoas. Samoas, though, I'm not expecting him to go for a move. I'm expecting him to give maybe a little bit of a bump or a shove and a push to Keller, but he's already looking down that inside line, and yeah, here's that shove, that little bump draft right there, getting a good run onto Pleva. Now, if Pleva and Keller want to be smart, they would give spot, but no, we're going to go 3 wide out of the S's.
Just, you can kind of see that.
Man, here comes York Body. The Red Lobster also looking in on that as well. We're going to go side by side into the bus stop. There's bumping and banging and bouncing around as the 116 Motorsport of Felix Samoa's car got a little bit of airtime and a little bit of grass as well. And it's Keller taking the lead. But the way that they should have been doing this is the first car knowingly gives way to the second car and nobody fights behind them. But honestly, with these guys, they're warriors. They're going to be fighting every corner that we see, and this is what we love here. It's not the battle for the lead, but they're acting like it is. Because down to the inside, it's Felix, and he jumps into second place, and he goes for second place right now, and he gets second place. I almost said the second place to the lead. But honestly, this seems like the lead of the pack is Marco Pinero. He's in a different county right now. He's 3 seconds ahead of him within 3 laps of this race. Yeah, there he is. You just saw that little yellow dot in the distance. That's Marco Pinero. That's actually our race leader, but this is honestly the race that everyone's looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing about it is when they came out of the lap, the gap was 1.6, and they were actually closing. And then once they got to the S, and said, you know what, we're going to go 3 wide again, 7/10 on the back stretch and then through the bus stop.
It's like when I said, oh, these drivers have their heads screwed on. They're going to be working together. They're going to be pretty smart. Oh, they threw that out the window. Their heads were screwed on, but when they were wiring on the screws to complete that circuit, they tripped the go nuts button.
I think that you're absolutely right.
It's like the start of iRacing Daytona 500s. I don't know if you did your Daytona 500 this week, but in my race, it was wrapped up within 25 laps, and every time we had a restart, there was somebody at the start of the race that was just immediately going for the green flag, be like, I want to lead the Daytona 500, and then causing a giant crash, which then defends my qualifying. Ooh, 3 wide, a little bit of a bump and a bang, and Felix getting shoved all the way down to the inside of the track as Pleva retakes second spot. A little bit of a chaos moment happening right there, but yeah, a lot of stuff happened on my race starts, but I'm glad I'm very bad at qualifying in a circle, so I avoided all that.
Right.
Unfortunately, I had to deal with parking lots, and I'm not that fond in parking lots and big V8s.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, sometimes you either want to start in the front or the back on those races. I was sitting here watching the Masters battle, P6, 7, and 8 overall, with Monty, Murakami, and Reyes, who are the top 3 drivers for the championship, and they're swapping positions back and forth, and they're having a little race inside a race, and it's been really fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm going to give these this fight for second place, so maybe a few more laps before they start to calm down and realize what they're doing.
Yeah, I think they'll get it. I think they'll get it worked out. I don't think the gap's going to be 3.5. Based on what I'm seeing here, I think that they'll get it all worked out, and they'll see if they can close that gap down slowly, and then we'll get into pit stops, and that'll really shake things up.
You can definitely see for a moment of drivers trying to fuel save this entire race, just get onto the back of the pack and just stay there. As we're looking at Dan Babic sitting in 17th, looking back at Chris Montgomery right behind him. Leading group of that, this is 933, and diving down to the inside. Well, hello, Chris Montgomery, going side by side of Dan. He found a spot and he wanted to go for it. Entering the bus stop. Only one way to find out, and let's throw it to Jonathan over for a replay. This is Cathcart on the outside of the track. Slow into the bus stop. Oh, he's caught a bump on the inside. He was leaving room, and there's the damage behind him. Got a big pull shot into the wall. And that was Ian Gibson that was the cue ball in that pool shot scenario. Would you be the cue ball if you were the one hitting the other car into the wall, or would the car being hit into the wall being the cue ball?
I think you're the cue ball if you're the one that's initiating the contact. I think that's how
okay.
that works.
Okay. Yeah. There's no stick in this scenario.
I mean, the only stick is that pedal that's under your right foot. So. Yeah,
which is always down in my case. It's a good footrest.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, it's what you talked about earlier. Is they're too wide. You slow car, and then he's bunched up the field behind, and then you get the
and big shot right there, and another big shot. That is to the 247 of Aaron Vaguely was in the grass entering those S's. But Vaguely is having a very good race. He's stuck in the middle of this fight, and he's having a great time. Vaguely up into 18th now, and he is up 19 spots. Aaron Vaguely, well, a few weeks after his initial Spec 2 win at Phoenix, it wasn't the best race at Barwell. This is a bounce back and a half here today at Watkins Glen, sitting in 18th, and it's already looking pretty nicely for him today. He's near the lead of the second pack. You can see the leading pack up ahead, but if Vaguely could finish in the top part of this group, I can already say this start is certainly a highlight for him today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and going back to that 3 wide, you can do 2 wide through the S's with cooperation. It doesn't matter how cooperative you are. 3 wide through the S's does not work. So that's
also,
you know, somebody needs to back out of that situation.
Yes, somebody needs to pump the brakes, wipe the sweat, and then back off. And speaking of backing off, Monty is leading that group now as Samoas is pulled away. And I think that fight for third place, Monty got a little bit aggressive. And I think the most aggressive driver in this group is not Jorg Monty, it's Devin Keller. Keller already pressuring Monty onto the inside. Keller and Pleva, I think, have been the problem childs of this kind of group right here, because they've been going for everything. And already we have cars heading to the pit lane. Daniel Wood, Stevie Ray, Kuzma Lesnoy, and Megan Overstreet.
Well, I mean,
all of them in a group heading into the pit lane. I believe this is a strategy call because everyone likes to follow Stevie. Stevie is the lord of the undercut.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. So they see Stevie go in, we're going in with him.
Oh,
so
hello, 3 wide. Chris Murakami stuck in the middle with you. Hello, we're 4 wide right now, heading to the bus stop. Pump the brakes into the bus stop, and big slide for Keller ahead of the group, and he goes into the grass.
Nice recovery, though. He's back out on the track. Didn't lose some positions.
Monty, and the craziest thing about that, Monty has stayed in the head of that group.
Yeah. So, Kelleher basically, 4 wide through here.
What is going on here?
Yeah,
look at that. Steven Elston just snuck through the field right there, and he's pulled out a pretty okay gap with Alice Pleva. Devin Keller is kind of just unfortunately able to go there, but we got a 2-car breakaway from this group. Elson and Pleva, well, they aren't taking any notes and working together. They're still immediately going to be fighting into it, heading into the heel. That's playing into Samoa's and Pinero's group right there. They're just like, okay, y'all continue it on. You're 6 seconds behind the leader, and they're fighting with each other. Into our second pack group, Vaguely and Brewster in the fight for 14th place. Vaguely's car, he's got the lithium racing on the right side of that car. From certain head-on shots, it looks like a number 5. The Lithium Fox start. The L from head-on shots, it looks like a 5. And I was about to say that this car, the number 5 car, and I was like, wait, who's 5? I've never seen that. That number's not in our entry list. Antonio Reese heads into the pits as the 933 of Jim Brewster heads into the wall. A little bit of smoke from the wall tap right there as Vaguely goes up for the 24th overtake today into turn 1. As Dorelli behind them is up 21 spots. So multiple drivers in the 20s today.
Yeah, it's been kind of a topsy-turvy race. We've had some spins and people dropping down, and then we had some people moving forward. So it's been really, it's been, I won't say cutthroat. I think they've been running really cleanly, but it's been some hard racing.
Commentator's curse immediately as he said the word cleanly. 2 cars into the wall.
Yeah.
Brewster and Bately in the wall on the inside. That happened right behind of Aaron Vaguely. And right as the moment, I think, as you said the word cleanly, that happened right in front of us as they're going 3 wide. We're going to throw it over to Jonathan to find out what just happened. But of the immediate commentators' curses that were, that's the biggest one. As that is a big bunch up of cars just entangling with each other's space. And, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, 3 wide. Anytime you see a wreck on the straightaway, you figure it's just side-by-side contact, and that's exactly what it was. You know,
side by
going
side
3
contact,
wide.
side by side bumping and rubbing. I know they say
Yep.
rubbing's racing. It's not that.
No,
Definitely was
it's
not
absolutely
that.
No.
That
So
has
that's
given.
another shuffle. So everybody's moving around.
It's another shuffle of deck over to our leading pack. Steven Elson in third place leads that pack. Samoas has pulled away from this, and this is the pack for third place. There is Cathcart ahead of Samoas, sitting in second. Here's a fight for third. Elson snuck through after that massive 3-wide incident heading into the pits. Montgomery and Bailey heads into the pit lane, into the bus stop. That's where that incident happened, and that involved Keller, who's sitting in 11th. I had a little bit of a brain fart right there.
Yeah,
But
no problem.
I think because that has happened, I feel like this group is now feeling a little bit smarter. But as soon as I said that,
Nope.
I'm confident cursed myself. They're going at it side by side. Monty on the outside, and it's Plava on the inside. Let's ride on board to Chris Montgomery. Monty's rival had an incident last race. That championship gap now separated by 7 points, and it's still Monty's favor right here. But let's ride on board with Chris Montgomery for a while because he's in the best spot of this race. Chris Murakami, as Hansen is our Spec 2 racer, sitting right behind him.
Yeah, I said I got a big ooh earlier as I was watching Jorg basically just almost lifted the rear end of Plava's car off the ground going to turn. That's how, that's how tight they were. It was just, you know, you could just see he was wanting to get by. He felt like he had more speed than Plava, and just and finally made the move work. Is to see if he can pull away now.
Seeing they can pull away, seeing they can work together and try to catch the cars ahead of them is definitely the plan. Monty and Elson going very wide out of the heel. It looks like that heel got a little bit of an extension right there to be working with that. As I'm trying to avoid making any shoe puns here.
Right.
It's like the back of a flip-flop got blown out with that heel of how far you can go wide.
Yep.
As Elson dives into the pit lane, he's going by Hansen.
Yep. So there, more pit stops going. We're getting up to that mid part of the race where you'll start seeing everybody coming in.
Now, our pit leader would be the best spot to look at, see if that pit group is working together. That would be Antonio Reason.
Keep running just good, clean, consistent laps. With these guys that are still up front battling, yeah, absolutely could make up time on the backside and may make up some crucial spots here at the end of the race.
Crucial spots indeed to be made up for a few of these drivers. They just got to keep their head on straight, and if they head into the pits, make sure that you're going in with a partner, or else it's going to be a uphill battle for you, especially because we're going to be helped out by that draft. That gap up front, well, our two leaders, Samoas and Pinero, they're all by themselves. Devin Keller heads into the pits all by himself.
Yeah, he'll come out, but hopefully he can pick up a group to join and just tuck on the end and see if he can make it work for him. It's tough when you're in a draft track, and a lot of tracks for these cars are draft tracks. So it's very difficult to jump in the pits by yourself and then come out. You just kind of hope that there's cars around as you filter back out of the pits that you can join up with.
Fight for third, Murakami up into third with Plava and Monty playing it easy, working the draft, playing the game. Was leading that group, lets them by, gives them the speed, gives them the momentum, and that is more time chopped down to our leaders. And that is evident by our by Chris Murakami's last lap of a 2:03.36, which was 6/10 faster than Marco Pinero.
Yep. See, that's what happens when you work together and you can get a group. See now when they got York taking it to the inside.
York's like, all right, I gave you the spot, give me it back.
Yeah, I think York's looking at the bigger picture here.
Well, he was looking at the bigger picture, but that move was very short picture by Yormani because now they've kind of separated each other, and Murakami is pulling away. But yeah, your bigger picture is the fight for the championship. He wants to be behind Murakami.
Absolutely, yeah, he absolutely wants to be as close to him. Obviously, in front will be better, but if not, then immediately behind him.
Let's ride on board Bobby West as they head west, facing with that corner entry. It's a horrible segue and a horrible geography fun because I was right. They are like facing west. They were facing west and facing south now. Now they're going to be facing back to west, as that is a wide exit by the 959, and Yormani heads into pits as Bobby West down onto the inside looking for 5th place, and they're ahead of a little sizable group as well. That massive group that we saw start of this race is kind of evaporated in front of our eyes with cars heading into the pit stops and that little 3-car breakaway working with each other. Now it's just a 2-car breakaway, and I feel like that group is going to be very hard to catch up with these 4 cars, so they start battling once more on this straightaway, and it's looking like already, because I see movement by the 160. Jason Green wants to be making a move on Nelson. Yep, there they go. They go 2 wide. They're looking for 3 wide. The 89 of Bobby West trying to stay face right there. Simon Meyer to stand back behind him in the true number 5 car, behind Michael Nelson. Ahead of him, the new leader of this group, it is Jason Green in 5th place.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Monty going in not going in by himself, but he's usually one of the guys that's the last of the pit stop guys. And he's came out. He's about 3 seconds behind for Speedy, and about a second ahead of Kelleher. And so it's kind of interesting. He's kind of in a bubble by himself, and so he's either going to have to get caught from behind, or he's going to have to just be able to do something with the car that we haven't seen, which is just kind of pull out and leave, with the exception of Panera, who's obviously done that. He's just kind of left everybody high and dry.
Mark Panero is the embodiment of been there, done that. Just so consistent. And speaking of consistent, there is Mark Panero. He is on track. He's not just a name at the front of the group that we just wrote Gap next to. He's actually out on track.
Absolutely. Yep. And
it does look like most of the time that
seconds.
he is the car that we do just keep up there. It's just taped right there up on the screen. As Felix heads into the pit lane, 2nd place. Been running by himself ever since pulling away from that fight for 2nd place in that massive group after a 3-wide incident heading into the bus stop. Felix is now into the pits, and I'm expecting him to be the first car out of the pits and leading that pit lane group. I'm expecting him to join up with I'm expecting him to join back in at about 12th place.
Yeah, that seems about right, based on what I'm seeing.
Well, he's exiting the pits, and he rejoins in 12th place.
Yeah.
Take a little pat on my back and strategy. And a big thank you to SDK Gaming with that live timing to show the pit lap times, the total time stopped in the box, as well as your fastest laps, the best lap, the current speed, your top speed. Top speed reached by a car last lap was 149 miles an hour. I don't think that is accurate. They might have had a little bit of a blip. I think the fastest speed I've ever registered in SDK was off of a top speed glitch like that, where somebody's had a issue with a lag. It has popped up. They were driving a Formula V at 256 miles an hour.
Oh wow, that's quick.
Though it's not as quick as the fastest speed recorded on iRacing with a Mercedes W12 and a lot of other cars at Charlotte Oval, which was recorded going 20,000 miles an hour, and then it got shot off into space.
Yeah, that is escape velocity almost, so it doesn't surprise me.
On this episode of Arca Break Weekly,
yep.
If you're a fan of the i5G channel, that is where you will be able to see that on. and the thumbnail is the car off into space. It's just a little tiny blurry speck. Also, speaking of specs up ahead of everybody else, Marco Panero's in the pits.
There we go.
And cars behind him do not head into the pits. So for the first time this race, Marco Panero is not going to be leading a lap. Chris Murakami is going to be leading that lap. As, well, he's immediately being passed by Alex Pleva. As Pleva and Murakami battle out for the lead of the race ahead of Bobby West and Jason Green.
Yeah, it looks like the race is kind of settled in midpoint of the race. Everybody's doing their pit stops. Still seeing some battles here and there, but the field's kind of stretched out a bit. So there's still some action, but it's not the fast and furious that we saw at the beginning.
Which Fast and Furious are we talking about? 1 to 10?
I mean, take your pick. I stopped at 3. I couldn't handle it after that. So.
I stopped after Tokyo Drift. when they started throwing cars out of buildings and out of airplanes, I just see that. I'm like, okay, y'all lost the name Fast and Furious and just gone Furious. Honestly, that channel, that movie franchise has gone from Fast and Furious to Family, and Furious.
Yep.
Otherwise known as Jersey Shore. Just Furious in that case.
Yes.
And that was a dated reference that I hope most people... That was a very dated reference that I hope most young children do not search after this.
No, nothing good comes of looking up the Jersey Shore.
Good South Park episode, though.
Yeah. I will agree with that. Nothing good comes from looking up South Park. So if you haven't seen that, stay away from it.
No.
So we got Murakami.
Murakami Green all into the pits. Simon Meyer, though, he stays out, as well as Marco Panero. Actually, that entire reference to Marco Panero is completely pointless, as he made an overtake on. Wait. I saw his name bounce up, like he's passed somebody. It was like, was there an issue? Did somebody spin?
Nelson. Okay.
I think so there might have been a Nelson spin because he was ahead of. Oh, yep. Slow. Oh, is this out of fuel?
Out of fuel. That's kind of what it feels like.
It's in the toe strap of the boot, and yeah, that is pretty much out of fuel. And we're going to be seeing Marco Panero zoom by eventually, but that is what happened as he toes into the pit lane.
Yeah, so it looks like we're down to only Simon Mayer, who is not pitted yet. Once he pits, then it'll be Panero back in the lead. Looks like he's going to have about a 5-second gap over Samoas. And yeah, so like I said, stretched out. We've still got battles from about P5. Monty, Green, Kelleher, Race.
That Monty fight, by the way, that Monty strategy of his really worked out. He's got a pretty sizable gap of, well, it's a 1 second gap. Murakami's right behind him, but he was behind him, and oh, no! And that is commentator's curse on me.
Yes,
that race has gone into, well, that advantage has gone into the dumpster, and the best part is they continue on right next to each other, so they can regroup with each other, work together, but side by side, heading into the bus stop chicane. Very hard. This is the second incident that we've seen Devin Keller have at the bus stop chicane.
Yeah. The first one was not
the 4-wide.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, the 4-wide where he basically caught the inside curb, and that's what spun the car. That was just contact, and it was just hard racing. So
hard. He's on the outside of this one, and well, he caught the inside curb on the entry. This one, he caught the inside curb on the apex. As Simon heads into the pits, all the cars have headed into the pit lane right now. As well, this is the loneliest pit lane right now if you are Simon, and it's probably the best pit lane that you want to be in case you haven't practiced your pit entry. Because there have been moments in a crowded pit lane where I've driven past my pit box.
Oh yes, I've done that a few times myself.
Been there, done that, did it last night.
But what it did do was it actually did, Mayer's stop time was 12.1. I think the other one lower than that was Pleva. with
York
11
Bonnie is
flat.
back in the
So,
pit lane, and I'm expecting he got some pretty big damage from that hit. So I would say the championship points currently plays into Chris Murakami's favor now.
Yeah, well, and then Reyes is actually leading the match, so that'll actually bring him a little closer into the fight as well.
Yeah, it's a 7-point gap up front. Antonio Reyes will be closing that gap to York Monty, so make that title fight even tighter now as we are heading into the final round next week. And just saying that makes this season go by in a blur. But then again, we're only counting 10 races this season, as 2 of our races were scheduled during the holidays, and they decided to be family man and woman and decide that those 2 rounds do not count.
There we go. That's
I
awesome.
believe there was a race held though for local people.
Yeah, so still a big battle in the Masters class. Murakami and Reyes. Murakami's now in the lead by a half second. Still a battle. The battle is not so big in the in Spec 2. Hansen's leading Kelleher by 2.6.
And Kelleher, I would say, has damage, and that gap that Hansen is in, that little fight, I believe Hansen is in it. Yeah, there is Hansen at the back of that group. He's assisted by that draft of West and Elson, so Hansen's going to be getting that draft, as you can see Kelleher behind him trying to catch up with them, and Kelleher, with that damage that he definitely has from that incident with York Monty, is going to be struggling all by himself to catch this group unless they start fighting with each other. But Bobby West, he got a good run, and he backed out of the move on potentially Antonio Reese and Chris Murakami, as this is the Masters lead fight against the 2 Spec 2 drivers who are just sitting in 8th and 9th, and behind them is the Spec 2 leader. Spec 1 drivers are behind him, but the Spec 1 drivers immediately looking onto the outside. Here we go, 3 wide, and that is Elson onto the inside, giving a little bit of a bump to the 914 of Antonio Reyes, and looking around the outside, that is the 89 of Bobby West, and Bobby West going to go 1, 2, 3 through the bus stop, triple overtake here at Watkins Glen.
That was very, very nicely done. And it helped, everybody was aware of what was going on, and they didn't put a lot of pressure on each other to just try to get through that corner. Back down a little bit, but I don't think that race is quite over yet with 4 minutes left. I think Reyes and Murakami will have another battle before it's all said and done.
It's not over. We still got 5 minutes left, and so all these drivers are just finding their spots, biding their time, and now getting into that point of the race where they're just like, okay, strategically, where would I want to be heading into the final lap? As we see Reese, well, he wants to be near the front. Elson was on his tail, and Elson's getting a good run. I think Elson's going to pull to Bobby West, go around the outside. Look who is following him, though. That is Chris Murakami. He wants that. He wants Antonio Reese ahead of him, but they all pump the brakes, put on the binders, be like, all right, wait a minute, chill, take the chill pill. It's not the final lap. Don't need to send it as hard just yet. Antonio Reese stays leading that group, and I think that's the strategy for Chris Murakami. Stay behind Reese until the last lap.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like any draft race. P2 is where you want to be. So, you want to be able to get that last run at the very end to get that position. And I think they'll have probably, 2 laps to go at the line, either 1 or 2, not really sure. But yeah, so it's just, we're just waiting. We're just waiting, setting everything up, keeping everything calm until it's time to get wild again.
Time to get wild and time to get crazy. In just a few moments. 3 minutes left in this race. As this is Marco Pinero getting a little bit of a draft help. It's not like that he needs it from Brad Cathcart.
Yeah, he really doesn't. He's got a nice, 5-point-second lead. But
also just did a 204.3, so doing pretty well in the lap time department. One car heading into the pits. That is Plava heading into the pits. Now, he's probably short on fuel, and I can guarantee that he is because his pit stop time was the shortest out of all the drivers in this session. 11 seconds stopped in the box. I would heavily bet that Alice Pleva is out of fuel.
Yeah, I think he probably underfueled by a lap or so, and the timing didn't quite work out for him, so come in and get a little splash.
Couldn't clutch and coast for a bit, and it just did not work out for them. It's working out for these three drivers. They go 3 wide once more. Elson in the middle, Reese on the outside, Bobby West on the inside. And it's Reese taking over the reins of that group in 5th place as they're trying to chase down Jason Green ahead of him.
This has been a great battle amongst this group for the second half of the race. They've just been swapping positions back and forth. It's been clean. Battle.
Megan Overstreet round the outside of Gradwell and Montgomery. Montgomery chasing down Overstreet as well. Tom Gradwell right behind him, trying to catch up and stay with that group. They were the one that they just overtaken. So Gradwell, I would say, would be the bullet in the chamber in the next lap, because the next lap I would happily bet will be our final lap.
I think so.
It's going to be a tight one, and this is the last lap, or this is the checkered flag lap. Unless Marco Panero has it. Unless Marco Panero has an issue, it will be one more lap with 2 seconds to go. So it's going to be tight. 19 seconds left. That is a very bad example of being bad at math. But yeah, this is going to be one more lap to go. Marco Panero taking the white flag with just 6 seconds to spare. So if anybody was feeling up to 40, they're going to be a little bit worried seeing one more lap left.
Absolutely, yeah. So we'll wonder. I think Pleva was the only one that was really off as far as their fuel or their stop time. So I think everybody else is probably
Simon
okay.
Mayer might be a little bit worried.
Yeah, but Simon Mayer was the last one out there, so he didn't have to take as much as the rest of the cars.
This is true.
So I think everybody else is good for fuel, but you never can tell, right?
You never can tell. You don't know how the Throttle Lewis's drivers, as Antonio Reese backing off early, giving the draft and the spots to Elson and Murakami, but he cuts in front of Murakami's nose, trying to be aggressive about that last lap action right here, heading into the bus stop. Elson on Bobby West. Bobby West and Elson racing into the bus stop right behind him. Murakami around the nose of Reese takes the lead of the Masters class, but Murakami jumping over the bumps right there as the leading 2 cars of this group battle with each other. Bobby West has that lead. Murakami all over. Looking in his mirrors, as a dive down to the inside. That's Hansen on Reese. Reese is shaking his head. That is not what he wants to have happen, as he sees his Masters rival Murakami pull off ahead as these two are in a fight heading into the toe. Antonio Reese has to get onto the brakes, but he is now stuck behind of Todd Hansen in 8th place now. Steven Elson chasing out Bobby West. West looking down to the inside, breaking off that draft, heading into the heel. He's going a little bit slower. Is he going to be struggling on fuel? Is that a little bit of a lift and coast strategy by Elson? Murakami onto the gearbox of Elson now as they fly into the flip-flop of the heel and out onto the bootstrap as they exit the boot and on Montgomery in 13th, taking that one right there as the 664 is winning out that group.
Whoa!
There's a car parked right there.
not where you want to park.
Yeah, I know there's a demo derby. I know there's a demo derby after this race. It's not there.
Yeah. I'll give a shout out to Megan Overstreet. Miss Consistency's top 5 in points for the championship. Hasn't really. I mean, she's run top 10, so she's just been consistent every race, and then she get another top 10 in class this time. 14th overall, up 18 positions.
Biggest mover of the race. Something happened to Aaron Vagley. I believe it was that 4 wide or that incident on that back straightaway. It might have gave him damage. He might have just been stuck in the pits after another incident. So Megan Overstreet, your biggest mover here today, up 18 spots, and Miss Consistency, as you say, finishing in 14th place. results of this race. Marco Pinero takes the win, followed by Felix Simoes and Simon Meyer, followed by Jason Green, Bobby West, Steven Elson, Chris Murakami, Todd Hansen, Antonio Reed, Devin Keller, Dan Wood, Kuzma Lesnoy, and Chris Montgomery, followed by Megan Overstreet, Tom Gradwell, Jeff Cantor, Kirk Newens, and Paul Jackson in 18th. They're followed by Stevie Ray, Alex Pleva, Stephen Mitchell, Johan Butentega, Jim Brewster, Fabio Scali, Marco Trespidi, and Ken Bailey, followed by Ian Gibson, Gary Woodbolt in 28th. Behind them is Trenton Kramer, Bob Kern, Edgar Sanchinelli, Darren Cohen, Adam Bradshaw, Giovanni Longhand, Brad Cathcart, Michelle Veglini, and Robert Butcher, and Dan Babich in 38th. Final section of drivers, York Monty down in 39 points, losing the Masters Championship lead heading into the final race of the season. Behind him is Michael Nelson, Sergio Dorelli, Aaron Vagley, Philip Berry, Jakey in 44th. Didn't see a lot of him today. And they're followed by Bradford Gold at the end of our 45 car grid. Paulo Goria and Eduardo Danzas did not take the start. As we do have interviews waiting for us. And we are joined by, we got Simon Mayer and Chris Murakami waiting for us. Who do you want to talk to first?
Let's talk to our Masters winner there, Mr. Murakami.
What happened, bud?
Well, we are joined by Chris Murakami in the booth. Charles, you're standing by with your fellow Masters driver. And give the mic to you.
Hey, thank you very much